Sylvia?
Look, it's not going on now.
Shit. You can hear, but we can't see. It's not coming up on the screen.
No, I don't know. I'm so sorry. I actually don't know. Except to stop and just restart everything again.
Restart the meeting. The Zoom
I
meeting.
just don't know why it's not showing on here.
Restart and do from laptop. Oh my god. Okay. Do from the laptop.
Do you want to try that?
But then I'm going to have to use the camera on the laptop.
Yes.
So then can you make me the host?
Yeah, I've made you a co-host already.
Maybe you can, hang on, start.
We need to restart the meeting, so you'll probably disconnect. If this happens, please go again onto Zoom.
Get rid of those.
Sylvia, can we get away with what you're seeing now?
Okay, so basically, can you hear me and see me? Okay, so she can hear and see me. So just turn some of these lights away because it's the image in the screen.
Yeah. Sylvia says this is good.
Yeah. Can you have a look in the image? Yeah. Sylvia, just oh fuck! I need to get rid of that light. Can you turn off that main light, please, for a second?
Yeah.
Just because it's a bit dark. Anyway, let me just move it over here a small bit. Yeah, and there's flashy things in the screen, so I don't know what it is. But maybe just turn those things. Hang on. And that around that way. I don't know what's shining.
I think just go with that.
Jesus.
It's not awful.
Good. Go for it. Just let them in. I just need to make sure my... Hello, Carol. Hello, who have I got? Carol, Fernanda Romeo, Christina, hi Christina. Gabriella is joining. Lorna, hi Lorna. Well, I'll wait for some of these people to actually get their audio going. For anybody who's on right now, I'm so sorry to ask you this. Can you just let me know if you can hear and see me okay by just putting a message in the chat? Fernanda, hello. I guess that's a yes. Okay. Right. Very good. So who have we got so far? We've got, there's still a few people joining. Fernanda. I've got, seeing you here fine. Thank you, Lorna. Hi, Mark. We've got Carol, Gabriella, Lorna, Margaret, Mark, Ray, and who's down there at the bottom in that thing there now? 1 second. With that colouredy thing, it just, for some reason, it's blocking my thing. Trina, and somebody else. Okay, Mark, thanks for putting on your camera. Much appreciated. Thank you so much. Folks, I'm so sorry tonight. It was all beautifully set up. 8 o'clock, we went to roll, and the internet crashed. So we had to restore the internet in the building, and then it didn't work for the normal camera, and now I'm doing it on my laptop. And now I realize now I'm looking at the wrong camera. I should be looking at you. So there you go. I see I'm out of my comfort zone already. Okay, folks, so thank you so much. We're going to launch straight into it. Very first thing I do when I'm starting all webinars is I just want to find out where everybody is from. Now, I normally have these webinars on mute because if everybody's talking at the same time, it kind of gets a bit confusing. So if you don't mind, pop into the chat where you're actually logging in from, if you don't mind. I just want to see where everybody is at the moment. Okay, great. Therese Kilkenny. Yes. Just up the road from my hometown, my home county, Kildare. Who else is from a location? Who else is from somewhere? Margaret from Ballina, County Mayo. Wonderful. Good to have you, Margaret. Thank you very much for waiting and for joining us. Ray from Cork. Hello, Ray. Good to have you. Nani from Copenhagen. Beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. Anybody else want to put a shout out to your town, your city, your country, anywhere at all? But anyway, we've got a nice stretch. We've got a nice stretch of people across the country. So good. Excellent. Okay, folks, without further ado, again, my sincere apologies for starting late. I always start on time. This was just one of those days, okay? Hello, Mark from Dunleary. Now originally Dublin. Oh, wonderful. Good. And hi, Gabriella. Okay, folks, thank you so much. Little introduction to myself. Look, I'm looking at the wrong camera. This is terrible. Now, I'm going to train myself to look at this camera. You are here, okay? You're not over there. You're here, okay? Gabriella, you can't hear. Okay. Do you know what? I will ask maybe Sylvia, who's the host, to reach out to you. Can everybody else hear okay, apart from Gabriella? Let me know, would you? You can. Thanks, Mark. Okay, everybody else can hear okay. Maybe somebody can reach out to Gabriella. Okay, folks. So, introduction. My name is Vincent Kelly. This particular webinar is on breaking bad habits. It is based off this book called Dianetics, which means through the mind. Okay, through the mind. It was written by this gentleman by the name of L. Ron Hubbard, who did a lot of research into the mind and life. He developed another subject called Scientology, which is about the study of knowledge. That's another subject, but this particular webinar is based mainly on this particular subject, which is about the mind. Okay? Now, the promise here is that hopefully I can squash it into 45 minutes because I intended to finish at 9, so I might go over a few minutes, and I hope you'll stay with me for that. The promise here is that I'm going to go over the basics of what is it that causes you to have a situation where you cannot break a bad habit and what you're going to need to do to handle it. All right? Now, stay around till the end, because at the end of this webinar, I've got a little kind of a course that I do, and I want to just tell you a little bit about it, and there's a little offer for that course, so I would like you to stay around if you don't mind. Next thing is that if you've got any TV playing in the background or the dog jumping up on you or whatever, put them aside for the moment and just put your attention on the webinar so that you can really get this data. I won't keep you long. I'll keep it as interesting as possible and just give you the important data. All right? Who am I to be talking about this stuff? Anyway, I've been a little bit about my background. I grew up in the countryside in Kildare, moved to Dublin in the 90s for college, and let's see, we have seems to be that camera is on right now. Let me just get those lights going. Hang on. There, that seems to be better. Okay, great. Excellent. Now, how do I take myself off my own camera? Oh, there I go. Okay, so stop my own video. Okay, that's perfect. Now I can focus on you guys, because when I'm looking down here, it's a bit all over the place. Maybe I can turn those lights a bit so I can see a bit more. That'd be great. Okay, brilliant. There I am. Hooray, hooray, hooray. Okay, totally random tonight. So basically, what I want to talk to you about is habits, and why am I talking to you about this? Why is it me? As I mentioned, I grew up in the countryside. I moved to Dublin to study personnel management in the 90s. I was interested in the whole subject of self-improvement. Went traveling, came across this subject in Munich in Germany in the 90s, and have been applying it ever since to help other people. I've been all around the country. I've been to Cork and all sorts of different places, showing people this subject. I'm trained in Dianetics myself, in delivering it, and it's been very, very beneficial. So this is why I'm here. Okay, little bit of a personal story. When it comes to habits, we all have had habits. Now, there are very serious habits, and there are habits which just occupy your attention. Now, for me personally, I've never had an addiction to drugs or alcohol, but that doesn't mean I haven't had bad habits. For me personally, just one example of it has been when I was in college school and college actually, I was very much, not addicted to, but one of my habits was video games. So at the time I was pretty shy, even though at the moment I'm not the most extroverted person in the whole world, but back then I was pretty shy, not so much confidence, very bored in school and with schoolwork, so I would go and play video games, and the video game would give me a release. So this is the first thing I just want to mention, is a release. Basically, I got a release from the boredom, a release from the lack of confidence, a release from the shyness when I was playing that video game. Got so excited, and I came out of it 5 minutes later after finishing it. I'd be doing fine, and then I go back into life again, and then I want the release again, so I have this compulsion to go back and play video games. Look, it's not as serious as a situation where somebody is addicted to chemicals or whatever, but it's just a little bit of a similar type of situation. Constantly going back to video games and having a compulsion that every time I finished in a class in college, I'd be thinking, okay, video game, that's what I need to do. And for kids, if you have kids or teenagers that play video games a lot, or even if you do, it's probably mainly out of boredom. If you didn't have the boredom, you probably wouldn't be playing them as much. But it's usually boredom, exhaustion. For people that hit bad habits, it's usually stress, these kind of things. For me, it wasn't particularly, it was mainly lack of confidence and shyness, okay? And of course, the boredom. Now, before I begin to go into the basic reason for bad habits, I want to find out from you, and if you don't mind popping it in the chat, that would be fantastic. What is the reason you logged on to this webinar? In other words, why are you here? You know, was it a bad habit that you tried to break, but you just can't break it? Or did you have a failure in breaking a habit? Or are you afraid that if you break this bad habit, that you're going to get another one? For example, a lot of people don't want to break the habit of smoking because they'll get into the habit of eating. So you just want to find out, for you, what is your reason for being here? Is it somebody that you want to help? Is there a habit you want to break? Do you want to just improve your knowledge of the area? Could you let me know so I can just tailor make the webinar just for you? I've got my own points and my own notes, but I just want to make sure I'm not wasting time. Okay? Let's see what we have. So just pop into the chat. If it's your own personal bad habit, you don't necessarily have to put it in. If it's too private, it's fine. But if you're trying to help somebody else to crack a bad habit, pop it into the chat. That would be fab. Okay, so what have we got so far? Smoking, cursing, nail biting, stress related. Got it. Thank you, Lorna. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, smoking is like when people experience stress, then they experience the smoking a lot. So that's good. Ray, improved knowledge of the area. Fantastic. Thank you, Ray. Nani, own bad habits that are almost impossible to break. Got it. Thank you. Fernanda, procrastination. Yeah. Oh, I'll leave it till tomorrow. It's actually a good one. Popular one. Anybody else want to pop it in? Cannot break the habit of falling asleep every night on the couch, wake up at 2 in the morning. Got it. Okay. Now to have others studying psychotherapy. Thank you, Mark. Want to help somebody stop smoking. Thank you, Gabriella. Trina, smoking impersonal. Thank you so much. Okay, folks, that's absolutely fantastic. So, for me, I mean, this is just a minor example. When I say video games, look, it's not the end of the world. It's not like I'm in the pub every night of the week. But for me, I started applying this stuff. I came across this in the early 90s, and it really, really helped me to get an understanding of myself, helped me to have a clear head, and I just didn't have that compulsion anymore. I got it sorted, so that now, if I wanted to, I could play a video game. I could play it all night if I wanted to, but I wouldn't have a compulsion to have to go back and do it again. In other words, I could just drop it, pick it up, drop it, pick it up. People say, well, you should never drink. Well, okay, if you can drink and then stop it and then drink when you choose, it's better than a situation where you're compelled to do it all the time. Okay, now, I want to just tell you what we are going to cover tonight. Okay. Now, we are are not going to cover the following. When a person has got a very uncontrollable habit in terms of drinking or drugs or even nicotine or even sugar, there are physical things going on in the body that contribute to a body craving for those things. It creates a kind of a dependency. So in other words, there is an aspect of alcohol and things in the body which are still in the body, still in the bloodstream, which can create a body situation where a person needs it. So for example, if a person's taking a drug, it's not just a matter of saying to the person, "Oh, just stop taking it tomorrow." It's just stop taking it, and that's it. Because the drugs are still in the body, and they can still create body reactions, which can lead to cravings. So there is an aspect of the material end of things. In other words, what's going on in the body, with the chemicals going on in the body, to do with these substances, which can contribute to cravings. So we're not going to cover that tonight. There are organizations, there's one going to start in Ireland soon called Narconon, which is specifically for people with drug and alcohol addiction. But we're not going to be covering that tonight in this particular webinar. But I'll tell you what we are going to be covering. And this is going to be your first practical exercise of the evening, because as I do a webinar, I normally ask you surprise questions. And then you're like, "Oh no, I haven't listened, so I need to come up with something." Here is the first thing I am going to be covering on the webinar, and the main thing. Okay? Anybody who's been with me, you know I love matchstick men because they're the only thing I can draw. Okay? This is what we're going to be covering tonight. Now I'm going to ask for your question here. Why are we going to be going over thought? Why are we going to be going over thinking? Can anybody pop in a little message into the chat? I want to see who's first. Why do you think we're going to be going over thought? Anybody want to volunteer an answer? Indeed. Mark. Exactly. Thought leads to emotion. Thought is number one. After the thought comes the emotion, and after the emotion comes the action. So this is the root of it. So for example, if you are addicted to chocolate, you have a habit of eating chocolate every day, and you've decided, "I'm going to give up chocolate." Fantastic. Brilliant. And then you're in Lidl at the checkout and you see some, oh hang on, that's not a good example. They don't have fantastic bars of chocolate at the checkout. I don't know, you're in Tesco and you see gorgeous bars of chocolate that you love. Then all of a sudden you start thinking about chocolate, and then you have this compulsion to have chocolate, and then you get chocolate, and then you have another bar. Or if you, let's say, have given up drinking, okay? And you decide, I'm not drinking, but then you pass by a pub in Dublin, and people are in there singing, and there's people outside with pints of Guinness and so forth. And then it gets you thinking about drink. And once the thinking starts, then there's a little desire that kicks in, which can turn into a little bit of an uncontrolled compulsion, which leads to you then taking the drink. Okay? So this is a very basic thing. The thought about what you don't want to do kicks in first, and then the compulsion comes afterwards, right? So the thing here is that if you were in control, let me just ask you this question. If you were in control of your thinking, in other words, if you were able to let these thoughts come in and go without having them control your life, would that make things better? So let me just summarize that question again. If you were in control of your thinking, and the thoughts that were coming in and out, do you think life would be better and you'd be able to get more control over a habit? Can you let me know by either a thumbs up or a yes, if you don't mind? Yeah. Good. Okay, Teresa. Yeah. Therese, sorry. Fernanda, okay. Mark, yes. Better choices, absolutely. Tara, yes. Nanny, of course. Yeah. Precisely. And welcome to everybody else who hopped in. I didn't even say hello to you. So the key thing is thinking, is the thought. When an uncontrolled thought comes in here and tells you, just have one drink, or just have one cigarette, or go on, just play the video game, that is going to make you just a little bit kind of stressed or anxious, and then the action is going to kick in again. So, the next question becomes then, where do thoughts come from? Where do thoughts come from? In other words, where do you come up with this conclusion about what you should do next? Where do you come up with this conclusion about what you should do next? And the answer is the mind. Now, I just want, just as a little bit of bit more information about me, okay? I am not into, absolutely not into, the theory of the chemical imbalance in the brain. So you just add a little chemical there and you make a person all better and he can think positive. Or this chemical is low because this chemical is high, and therefore the chemical's this, the chemical's that. I'm not into that theory at all. I don't agree with the whole pump him full of stuff to make him feel better. The reason I'm mentioning this is because a lot of people think that the mind is all about the brain and the substances and these kind of things, which it just isn't. The brain is part of the body, and if there's a part of the brain missing, it is going to affect your coordination and all sorts of functions in the body. But it is certainly not, in my opinion, ludicrous to think that everything that you've ever experienced and all your memories could be stored in a big lump of meat, not much bigger than a sheep's brain. The second thing, this is my chance to vent, and then we'll get on and I'll become happy again, I promise, okay? The second thing I don't get into is labeling. I'm not a fan of labeling. You know, a person has an issue or they've got a habit or a this or that, so we'll label him with a nice label and stick it onto him, and therefore he's in a nice little category and grand, and maybe we can pump him full of pills for that as well. I'm not into labeling. For example, you could have somebody and you don't know what's wrong with them, so people have these disorders that they love, certain groups, and so you could even label a person if you don't know what's wrong with them, but they seem a bit strange. You could say they have, I don't know what's wrong with your personality disorder. I mean, you can invent all sorts of disorders. If you look at some of the disorders in there's a certain handbook, there's caffeine drinking disorder. I don't know, you could invent them. So I'm not into labeling, I'm not into packaging people. Each individual is an individual with his own past and his own personality. That's the first thing. Okay, vent over. Continue on. Your mind is basically a collection of pictures from your past in exact date order. Why do you have a mind? Because every day you're faced with issues and you learn things and you store that information in your mind so that you can make decisions in your future. So for example, if you are in Tesco and you see a red apple, maybe 10 years ago you ate a red apple and it was nice. So you think, you know what, I like red apples. You're thinking very fast, I like red apples, and so you decide to buy the red apple. On the other hand, let's say you're in Tesco, you're looking for something for your burger, and you see the mustard jar, but you remember years ago you tasted mustard, you didn't like it. Now if you forgot all about it, if you completely forgot about mustard and forgot about the taste of it, or forgot about the fact that you ever even tried it, you'd probably try it again and not like it again. So by you knowing that you don't like mustard, you decide, I'm not going to get mustard. So basically, your mind is a handy collection of pictures from your past that you can use to make decisions about your future. You learned how to ride a bike, that's here. You learned how to drive a car, that's here. You learned how to deal with your husband or your partner, that's here. You learned how to log on to webinars, that's here. All that stuff is stored, and you use that in your life. So it's a nice storage, okay? So the mind is not something made up. It's not something, that has no substance. It's not something that's intangible. It's not a dream. Somebody says to you, it's all in your mind. Well, what does that mean? Your mind is simply a collection of pictures from your past. Okay? It's pictures. Okay? Now, we're going to do a little demonstration of this, and I'm going to show you a picture. How are you going to do that, Vinny? How are you going to do that? What I want you to do is remember something pleasant that happened in your life. The first thing that comes into your mind, something pleasant that happened in your life. And then if you don't mind popping it into the chat so I know what you're thinking, that would be just fab. Just try to remember something pleasant that happened in your life. Okay. Good. I'll just give you another moment. Pop it into the chat. I want to see. I want to hear what you've got to say. I want to hear what your pleasant moment was. Therese, having children. Fantastic. Beautiful. Mark, birth of son. Wonderful. Anybody else want to pop in an example? Tara, your kids. Very good. Anybody else? House swapping holiday. Wonderful, Trina. Wonderful. Very good. And if anybody else has one, pop it into the chat. Lorna, when I first saw Jessie, I knew she was my companion. Fantastic, Lorna. Ray, birth of son, daughter. Fantastic. Anybody else? What did you get? Fernanda, your first graduation. Beautiful. Nani, finding my ideal partner. Beautiful. Gabriella, your children. Amazing. Anybody else left over there? Okay. Each one of those things that you looked at, when I asked you, you looked at a picture. And it's very clear to you. So it does exist. So pictures do exist because you just saw one. Okay? So this is what the mind is. It is not a lump of meat. It is just a collection of pictures. Where it's located, not really the most important thing, to be honest with you. The fact is that it exists and you can see these pictures. Okay. Now, so when you have a mind, and it works very, very fast, you can set up in your mind what are called training patterns. Okay, now, so let me just get rid of one or two of these lines. You can set up these mechanisms called training patterns. Now what this means are things that you can do automatically without thinking at all. Okay? For example, so these are like processes that you have put on automatic, and it's a very clever thing to do. Okay? So for example, we could put driving a car. When you're driving a car, you don't have to think about, okay, I've got the clutch, go down here, the speed. You're not thinking practically at all. Often you're thinking about completely something different, but you're driving the car. So you have this set up automatically to take care of certain functions. Walking is another one. You don't have to think about it at all because it's an automatic thing that you have set up, and your mind has an ability to set up these automatic training patterns. Swimming would be another one. The person gets in and swims. He's not even conscious of his legs going back and forth. You're just swimming. Okay. Or riding a bike is another one. Okay, you learn how to ride a bike. 20 years later, you hop up on a bike, you don't even have to think about it. Now, next question for you. I want you to give me one or two more examples of things that you have observed that are on automatic for you. What actions do you not have to think about? You just do them automatically. Give me some examples because I want to write them on the board. Any automatic things? Nanny, playing an instrument, fantastic example. Absolutely. When you're starting off, you're kind of learning how to play the guitar, and then after a while, there's fingers and moving, and if you're playing the piano, the fingers are just going. Really, really good example. Mark, training boxing. Okay, very good. Therese, dancing, wonderful. You're just doing it, and you've gone through a set, and then you've realised you were dancing. Good. Carol, please, no idea what that means, Carol. Ray, spending money. Fantastic, Ray. Love that example. Love that. You just you're spending it, and then before you realise it, it's gone. Okay. Very good. Okay, Lorna, praying and cooking without measurements anymore. Very good. Excellent. I'm not quite getting what that one is, Carol. If you could clarify, that would be great. But basically, you have an ability to set up these automatic things in the mind. Good. Now we're getting to the habit a little bit in a minute. We're going to get to the habit and what's causing it. Now, there's one thing that you need to know. This is what we call in Dianetics the analytical mind. It's your mind, your ability to think, and it is better than any computer ever constructed. It's got a fantastic ability. You have an absolutely fantastic ability to think about things and come up with solutions very, very, very fast, and you know it. Because you've often come up with really quick solutions that were just amazing, handle the situation, done deal. Okay, now, so this is your analytical mind. The problem is this. Some of your memories are moments of emotional and physical pain. Okay? So you've got loads and loads of memories, but some of your memories are either one of two things. They're either a loss or there's some sort of physical pain. Now, when you have a bad experience in your life, for example, if you're playing football and you break your leg, that incident gets stored, but it gets stored with a bunch of, let me just pull this on the board here now. Okay, negative energy. Okay, so it's a picture, but it's got stored negative energy. Or you could call it stress. So every time you lose somebody close to you, or you have a very traumatic experience, or you experience some intense physical pain, or somebody knocks you unconscious, what is stored with that memory is a little package of negative energy. Okay? So, this negative energy and these pictures come together in a package which we call in Dianetics the reactive mind. It's called reactive because it doesn't think. In other words, there is a part of your mind that doesn't think. It just reacts. And it is what we call stimulus. I'm going to explain these words in a minute. Response. Okay? Stimulus, response. This word stimulus comes from stimula. It's a Greek word. And basically stimulus response means automatic action. So the word stimula basically means a cattle prod. It comes from Greek. So the Greek farmer, not just the Greek farmer, but any farmer, goes out to his field of cows with his big pointy stick. If you look up cattle prod on Google, you'll be able to see a picture of it. They're like these long things with points at the end. He goes out to the cow with his stimula. He wants the cow to go into the shed, so he taps the cow on the behind, and there's an automatic response. In other words, stimula, movement. Stimula, movement. The cow does not sit there or stand there going, hang on a minute, this fella is after hitting me with this big stick. Now what am I going to do now? No, I think I'm going to protest. Or I think, you know what, I'm going to have a little, I don't know, I still eat my hay. It's just, he doesn't even think, it's just automatic. So stimulus response basically means automatic or push button. So it's automatic or push button. An example would be you go out and in O'Connell Street there's 30 pigeons in the middle of the road, and you clap your hands and all the pigeons automatically fly up in the air. This is called stimulus response. There's no thinking that goes on. The pigeon doesn't think, he doesn't think, okay, hang on a second, I've heard this clap before, let me just analytically work this out. I think I'll stay. No, they don't think, they just move. Like switching off a light in a house, you know. If your lights are on, you switch off the lights, it's an automatic action. The lights don't stay around and go, okay, hang on a second, we actually don't want to turn off right now, we don't think it's the best for us, we're going to stay on. So stimulus response means automatic action. So what that means is this. The more of these incidents, and by the way, there is a name that we give these incidents. In Dianetics, we call them engrams. Okay? Engram just means written in. Comes from Greek written in. So engrams are basically moments of pain that you experienced in your past, or moments of loss that you experienced in your past. So what happens is this. Something similar in the environment, matching what happened to you back here, can trigger it off without your knowledge or your consent. In other words, something can come in here, and then that can start affecting your thinking without you even realizing it. Okay? So for example, if you were going out with a guy and he left you, and that was a big loss for you 5 years ago, and you're in a new relationship, and in the new relationship he starts arguing with you, well, that new argument could trigger off this loss, and you get the feeling like this new guy's going to leave you, whereas in actual fact he's not. Or let's say, moment of pain. Let's say you got, as a kid, you were bitten by a black cat. Now every time you see a black cat, this reactive mind triggers, and it tells you, get away, and it starts influencing your thinking without your permission. Even 10 years later, it's a different cat, different scenario, but you can still have a fear of cats because of this thing. And it works the same with compulsions and habits. So let me tell you exactly now what a habit is. Okay, so let me just get rid of a few of these things. You know what, I'm going to leave it there, because I'm going to read out to you the exact definition of a habit. Okay. Oh, by the way, let's see. Please. Waking up and looking at the phone. Thank you, Fernanda. That's a good one. Not saying no to the kids. Okay, very good. Ray, playing golf eventually. Got it. Thank you. Okay. So here's what a habit actually is. Now you're going to say, Vincent, I already know this. And yes, the last part of it is you're going to know. But I want to tell you the mechanics, because if you know what the mechanics are, you're going to know how to handle it. A habit, and this is directly from the Dianetics book that I showed you earlier on. It's a stimulus response mechanism. So remember I told you that your mind has an ability to set up automatic action. Well, also, your reactive mind also has the ability to set up these automatic actions, but these ones are called habits. These ones are training patterns that you use every day in your life. These ones are called patterns. So let me read out this definition. A habit is a stimulus response mechanism. Stimulus response just means it's a push button. It operates off triggers. Similar to the training pattern, but set up by the reactive mind out of engrams. It cannot be changed at will by the analytical mind, which is this. A habit is simply something one cannot stop. So, in other words, what you have is an ability in your mind to set up automatic action. Like driving a car, riding a bike, picking up the kids, whatever it is. But the baggage part of the mind also has an ability to set up automatic actions which tend to be destructive. And these are what we call habits. Now, when we think of habits, we generally think about things that we want to get rid of and things that are not really helping us. Okay? So these are set up by the engrams in the reactive mind. So let me give you an example of this. Oh, by the way, let me just ask you before we continue, because I'm going to introduce this word stimulus response. I want you to think about this for a second and pop it into the chat if you don't mind, because I want to see your understanding of it. What is one example of something that makes you react without your consent? For example, do you have something that people say to you that causes you to get stressed even though you don't want to be stressed? Do you have something that causes you to want to that causes you to lose your temper even though you don't want to be angry? So just for a moment, have a think about one thing that triggers you off and causes you to react. And if you don't mind popping it in the chat, in the chat, that would be great. Pop it in the chat. Pop it in the chat. What kind of things press your buttons? Just one example would be good, if you don't mind. Okay? Okay, Nanny, pressing on the brake when something goes in front of the car. I don't know if that was an answer to the previous question. Probably is. Mark, lack of respect. Very good. You're trying to be successful in life. Somebody comes to you, treats you bad. Logically, what you should do is understand, okay, well, not going to affect me. That's their problem. I'm going to continue on with my life. It's not my fault they're an angry person, but instead of that, you cave in. Okay? I'm not saying that happens with you, Mark, but I'm just giving an example of how it could be. Therese, an argument. Yeah, same story. You're just getting along. Somebody pushes your buttons, and then you lose your temper or you get stressed. Carol, similar one, arrogance. Very good. Again, you're dealing with somebody who's maybe in some indirect way putting you down, and it affects your ability to be yourself. Mark, values. I guess when you're talking about values, you're talking about values that you see in others. Am I right, Mark? Is that what you're talking about? Seeing values that, I don't know, lack of values, is it? Maybe you can clarify that for me, please, Mark. Lorna, I was only messing. You took me serious. Okay. Lorna, I need to learn to get jokes on this chat. But thank you, Lorna. Nanny, my son whining without an end. Logically, Nanny, you should be able to go, okay, my son is whining. I've listened to it 1,000,000 times. I should be able to sit here and experience it for an hour. But instead of that, you start pulling your hair out, wondering where that bottle of whiskey is that you stored up for Christmas. Okay? Fernanda, men's welling with women's. Men's welling with women's. I have no idea what that means, Fernanda. Absolutely no clue. I don't know what welling means, to be honest. Yeah, Mark, absolutely. Look, yeah, that is the way it should be. Totally. Be nice to people. Treat them how you want to be treated. It's a complete basic in life. Very good. And when you're not getting that, it can certainly trigger you off. Okay, great. Lorna, that's fine. We should probably talk about this because when I try to follow different chats, I get lost in which comment is which. Okay, now, little couple of examples of how does this relate to habits. Okay, now, remember at the beginning, we said that if your thinking is under control, in other words, if you are thinking naturally, being yourself, thinking positively, naturally, and you're not being influenced by stuff, and you're not being compelled to think about something, you're going to be free to choose what you want to do. The trouble is that you have this part of your mind that you're carrying around, which is full of the pain from your past, and it causes you to get these thoughts which turn into compulsions and feelings and actions. And you want to break it, you want to stop it. You've tried discipline, you've tried, I'm never going to do it again. You know what, I'm not going to eat another bar of chocolate for the rest of my life. There, now, that's it. I was hooked on it, I'm not going to eat it again, and the next day you're straight down to the shop, get yourself some more chocolate. Or you decide, you know what, that's it now, I'm giving up the cigarettes, 100%. Great. And then you see a cigarette, or you smell somebody smoke, and you go, okay, that's it now, I've had enough, I'm too stressed. Usually, when we're talking about habits, you can try to help the person break the habit till the cows come home, and it's difficult because you're not getting to the root. This is the root of what causes the person to be thinking like that in the first place. So this is really what you have to tackle. And if it's not tackled, it tends to keep going. Okay, I'll give you a little example. Now, look, these incidents, because the reactive mind is a bit of a crazy part of your mind, it's a little bit like an animal part of the mind. It doesn't quite think logically. You know, like my cat went out into the back garden the other day. Now, she's a little bit of a wild cat, so we have a long leash on her. And the leash went around the tree at the back, but she couldn't work it out, that all she had to do was come back around and she'd be able to get out of the tangle. Couldn't work it out, because animals, they've got this kind of it's very much a reactive mind. It doesn't always think logically. Maybe dolphins are more intelligent, I don't know. But anyway, I still love cats. I'm a cat lover. I'm a dog lover and a cat lover. Okay. If you were drunk and you fell down the stairs, that would be stored here. Passing by a pub could trigger that off and make you have a compulsion to drink. If, let's say, you were a kid and your parents gave you lots of physical and verbal abuse, and every time they abused you, they put you in front of the television to tell you to shut up. Okay? Years later, anything that's going on here, maybe trouble in your relationship, and then that triggers off the desire or the compulsion to continuously watch TV. People get addicted to pictures. And that stems from what's going on in here. It's a whole jumble of messed up pictures. Okay? So, the next question I have is, and you don't have to answer this, is how do you handle this? Now, I want to ask you, actually, now that I think of it, and guys, we're at 9 o'clock now, so and I normally don't keep people after 9, but I started a bit late, so if you don't mind hanging on for a couple of minutes, that would be fab. If you really have to go, it's fine, but I'm getting to the key point here. So if you just hang on for a few minutes, I'm sorry about the delay. Okay. In order to handle habits, whether that you have a habit of smoking, or watching too much TV, or eating late at night, or whatever else the habits you have, you've probably tried numerous things to try and handle it. And let me ask you a question. What have you tried? Whether it works or doesn't work, you don't have to pop it in. What have you tried to handle bad habits? Would you mind popping it into the chat? What have you tried in order to handle past bad habits? Mark, exercise. Good. Anybody else? What have you tried to do to handle bad habits? Very good, Mark, thank you. Yes. Reading personal development books, brilliant, Mark, thank you. Therese, giving out to myself, but it still doesn't work. Got it? Thank you, Therese. Fernanda, tried to put an app to turn the phone off. Yeah, you're trying all these mechanical things. Very good. Thank you, Carol. Changing routines. Good. Okay. Very good. Anybody else? What do you do? What do you do, or what have you tried to stop a bad habit? Whether it works or doesn't work, it doesn't matter. Nanny, put the alarm not right next to the bed so we can get up. Okay, Nanny, thank you. Anybody else? Practice choice theory. Okay, Mark. Good. Very good. Okay. If anybody else has something, Lorna, patches but don't work as effectively, second time to attempt. Okay. Smoking patches, I guess. Okay, if anybody else has one, pop it in here. Excellent. So look, people try all sorts of things to try and break bad habits. Getting busy doing other things, staying busy at work, trying something different. Okay, you I don't know, get yourself involved in some other, like let's say you want to break the habit of smoking, so you decide, you know what, I just need to get myself busy. So to get myself busy, I'm going to get involved in gardening. So you get busy in the gardening, and that's fine, except for the fact that what happens when you lose motivation in the gardening and it goes down? What's going to happen is that desire to smoke again, or that stress will kick back in again. So a lot of these things are workable, like changing routines, exercising, really, there's nothing wrong with these because they do help you, okay? But ultimately, to really and completely handle it, you need to handle the source of the issue. And the source of the issue is the baggage that you are carrying around in your stimulus response mind, which sets up these habits. And that involves delving into the past. I know you're probably on this webinar, you're thinking, Vincent's going to give me a trick now I can use to stop this, that, and the other. Okay? A lot of these tricks that people do to stop bad habits are often something that you have to push yourself to do every day. Okay, I have a habit of negative thinking. So in the morning, I'm going to think positive, think positive, think positive. So these are things that you kind of have to push yourself so that you don't get into the bad habit. But wouldn't it be nice if you could just clear up the root of what's causing it in the first place? I don't know what the root is for you. But what I do know is the root is something that happened to you, or a package of those things. And it can be a big package or a small package. You know? What was that last one? Trina, listen to music cooking. Listen to music cooking. Good. Yeah, so it's something that you're doing to keep your mind off something else. And it's not bad, at least it's something that tries to help. And you're trying to resolve it, so there's nothing wrong with that, okay? But ultimately, your engrams, which are the recordings of pain and loss, which are stored in this reactive mind, and which are stimulus response, which means push button, are what causes the bad habit in the first place. They're what causes you to lose control of your thinking. Because in actual fact, look, your thinking is yours. You should be in control of it. And you should be in control of it naturally, without any effort. You should be just naturally thinking the things that you want to think about, that are constructive for your life. So each one of us wants to do constructive things. But why is it that we're always compelled to do destructive things? And that's because there's this jumble of pictures which affects your thinking. And what's going on in the background is happening so fast that you don't even realize it's happening until you're in the pub and you're on your 14 pint of Guinness. Or you've had 10 bars of chocolate tonight and you said earlier on today you weren't going to do it, and you're like, what's wrong with me? Why do I keep doing this? Why am I continuously doing things to destroy myself? Okay? It's not you. You are not bad intentioned towards yourself or your life. It isn't you. It's definitely not you. It's this stuff which is nice and solidly hidden underneath the surface in a nice package, and you need to dig it and clear it up. So how do you do that? You ask. How do you do that, Vincent? private message came into me, the answer is yes. Okay, I normally don't read out private messages out loud. Okay, to really handle the source of bad habits and to prevent yourself from getting into these habits in the future, it is vital to clear up this reactive mind and what's in it. So you need to dig. Get a shovel. Get yourself a shovel. Not a real one, obviously. So, here is how we handle this in Dianetics. So we don't want to give you a technique for handling it for a few days, or a month, or a week. We don't want to give you something that you can do instead. Okay? Many people say, if you want to break a bad habit, just get involved in something else. And that's fine. That could work for a certain period of time. The danger is if you lose motivation on that, or you get stressed again, you can be very easily led back to that bad habit. So, the solution is what we call auditing. And this is the shovel that you use to dig up the stuff so that you can be clear in thinking and that you're naturally positive and not being driven down a destructive path. Okay? Auditing means to listen and to guide. In Dianetics, and by the way, I'm going to be showing you this in a second, it's explained in this book what auditing is in more detail, and I'll show you a little bit more about this later when I tell you about my course, so hang on, don't go anywhere, just hang on with me, hang on. Okay? The cup of tea will wait, I think. Okay, you've got what's called an auditor, and an auditor is a person who delivers the help. Okay? Auditor is a person who listens and guides. The person who is receiving the help has got their eyes closed and they're called a pre-clear. Pre means before and clear is the end result in Dianetics. Dianetics has an end result and clear is basically you back to yourself again. Doesn't change you into somebody different, it just gets you back to yourself again. And what the auditor is doing in a session is helping the person while wide awake, using the exact 10-step procedure in the Dianetics book, going back to these painful incidents and getting rid of that pain and that negative energy that is holding the person stuck in those incidents and which cause those incidents to be able to affect that person day in and day out. So what you're doing in Dianetics really is you're just discharging or getting rid of all the charge or the stress from these trapped incidents and often hidden incidents. Now often in Dianetics you won't remember what happened to you. Why? Because there's things that have piled on top of it. But as you handle one incident, so let's say you have an incident where your dad hit you across the head with a baseball bat last year. Okay? And that's that incident here. You've done the procedure, feel a bit better, but it's still not gone away. What that means is there's an earlier incident connected to it. So you'll be sent back to an earlier incident. So maybe 10 years ago, I don't know, your mother hit you with a baseball bat. Okay, you go over that, it's not handled. You need to go to an earlier similar. At the end of the day, in each Dianetic session, you want to get to the basic of the chain. So you're not really handling just individual incidents in a Dianetic session, you're handling a chain. Why? Because you want to get to the root incident, or what I call an engram. You want to get to the root engram because that is the source of what causes a person to develop this compulsion for habits, no matter what it is. Like you could start a habit for gambling and you've suppressed yourself out of that, but then you get into a habit of smoking and then you get into a habit of this or that and the other. Handling these engrams clears up that compulsion to do destructive things against yourself, okay? It's natural therapy. It is based on the most traditional method of helping another individual since the beginning of time, communication. All right? There's no drugs, no hypnosis, none of that. Person's wide awake. You have a natural ability to do this. Okay? That is the solution. Okay. So, summary. And then I want to tell you what my course is. Habits are caused by your reactive mind. And the root of the reactive mind are painful incidents in your past. The reactive mind causes all sorts of habits. You stop one, you start another. It just constantly gets you into new habits and makes it difficult for you to break habits. The only way to get to the bottom of it is to actually dig and find. And for each individual, that is different because each of us have had different bad experiences. And they're stored here. Auditing is how it's handled, and it's explained in the Dianetics book how to do that. Okay. Now, you might say to me, Vincent, that sounds great. I think I'll go and I'll get some auditing now. I need auditing. Before you do it, before you do that, before you ask me that question, how can I get auditing to get to the root of this stuff and really clear up the compulsion to get into bad habits in the first place, there is a little bridge to get to that, okay? The bridge is this little word, and this little word is a little bit of education. Okay. Know before you go. When you are thinking about going into here, into get some auditing, in order to make that auditing effective, in order not to waste your time, in order for you to get good results, you need to know what you're doing. Whether you're somebody delivering it or whether you're somebody receiving it. So knowing the basics are very important because it will give you certainty so that the results are going to be faster. And what I've done is I've put together a 3-workshop little package so that people can get the basic introductory education on this particular part of the mind and what you need to do to handle it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you exactly what my workshops are about. It's called Dianetics Explained. It's 3 workshops on Zoom, Friday, 8 to 9. Okay? 8 to 9 p.m. Now, there's already a set started, so the next one would be Friday, 5th of June, and then those 3 Fridays after that. Now, if you miss one of these workshops, don't worry, because you'll catch it the next time around. You can catch it on that next slot, but ideally, you would attend 3 in a row, ideally. But if you can't, you can catch it the next time around because it's circular. Okay, part 1, the mystery of the mind. So in this we get into, what is the mind anyway? What is it that makes you make decisions and how to make the best decisions and how to know if you're making the best decisions? Also, what are we all trying to do in life? So we cover some of those basics, just a general introductory webinar. Part 2, the mother of all unwanted thoughts. And here we're going to dive deep into what is at the root of your reactive mind and give you a very personal introduction to that for yourself so that you know where the problem lies. Part 3, the effect of emotional trauma and loss. This is massive because people say to me all the time, Vincent, time is a great healer. It's a wonderful healer, Vincent. Just let it go with time. It'll be grand. The problem is, with the whole time is a great healer business, is that if you don't handle this baggage, it grows. Every time something gets triggered, it adds to your reactive mind and it just grows. And if you can imagine, if it's growing and you have the problem now, what's it going to be like in 10 years' time? It's going to be worse. Okay? All right? So those are the 3 workshops that I've put together. Now, because it's not just me, it's based on the book. It's based on this book, Dianetics. The Dianetics book comes with it. And this explains everything I've gone over tonight, everything in the workshops, the full procedure, and every other situation that you could come across in order to get successful results. If you're not a book reader, do not worry, because you can also optionally get the DVD instead, which is 32 mini movies, and it's 4.5 hours, and it basically goes over all the basics in the Dianetics book. All right, so it's very good. Now, for tonight we have a special deal. Normally these are 30 euros, okay? But to encourage you to get going on it and to encourage you to enroll, it's 20 euros for tonight if you enroll before 9:30. Now, we might extend that because we were a little bit late starting. We might extend it till maybe, I don't know, 25 to 20 to 10. But if you enroll on it, it will be 20 euros. And what that includes is the 3 workshops, starting on the 5th of June, Friday the 5th of June, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. And then the other 2. If you can't make one, you'll catch it the next time around. But I do need you there, live, with me, so we can actually get good results from it. We keep it very, very simple. One thing at a time per workshop. And in the meantime, while you're on the workshops, you basically read the book or you watch the DVDs. Okay? The little mini movies in the DVD. And the book or DVD is sent to you with free shipping. So you don't have to worry about that. As soon as you enroll on it, the book or DVD is sent out to you straight away. And once you're enrolled, then you'll be confirmed for the first Friday, and then I will be personally taking care of you to make sure that you personally understand what's going on with yourself. Normally, these Zoom meetings are a little bit of a smaller group, and it allows me to kind of help it to be more personal, okay, so that we don't kind of give you too many pieces of general information. We just take one thing and get lots of practical demonstration of that. Okay? It's a workshop as well, so it's not just me talking, and you'll get the certainty after that. Okay? So the link has been put up in the actual chat. It's Sylvia, the host, has mentioned we're going to keep it up until 9:45. So you click the link, it'll be 20 euros before 9:45, and then after that point it'll be 30 euros. Okay? So what I want to do is I want to soon wrap up this because we've gone a little bit over time, but I want to see if anybody has any questions that you would like to ask. Right now is your chance. So any questions that you have about what I went over tonight, about habits, about the course, about the reactive mind, about anything, pop it into the chat. Okay? And I'll do my best to answer it. And look, I advertise and promote this workshop because education is the first step. Know before you go is a better choice, because once you do those workshops, you'll know better if Dianetics is for you and if you want to continue with it. You'll know, you'll have certainty on it. So it'll be much easier to actually handle this reactive mind once you have your own certainty. Okay? Very good. Very good. Okay. Let's see. Okay. And by the way, if you want, what I can do is turn on the mic and you can just speak. If you want that, just let me know in the chat if you'd rather speak the question. That's fine too. Mark, next question. When your mind is in engram, how do you take control? That's a really good question. So when a person is being affected by an engram. Okay, so we talked about a person experiencing an engram. In other words, a person has got a heavy, heavy emotional loss. Now, the thing is, Mark, when that happens, there's a very big impact. There's physical or emotional pain, and there's some degree of unconsciousness that goes with that. So, for example, if you get knocked across the head by a baseball bat, you're going to be either completely unconscious or semi-unconscious. So at that particular moment in time, anything that is said around you during that moment or anything experienced goes into the reactive mind as part of the package. Now, if that engram gets reactivated in the future, and it could do so by simply seeing baseball bats, being at a baseball game, hearing about people who are swinging bats at each other, watching drunk people fight each other outside a pub, that could trigger off the engram and lead to negative thoughts which actually drive a person to do these different things. The only real solution at that point is to have had a little bit of education on what's going on. So if you are more aware of the mechanisms of this engram and how it affects you, then the first thing is you'll know something's affecting you, and just having that knowledge that something is affecting you immediately gives you more opportunity and more ability to be in control of that. Versus the situation where you just try to stop it. In other words, this engram is being reactivated, it's affecting your feelings and your thoughts, and you've got this compulsion to eat 15 bars of chocolate. Now, of course, as people normally do, they try to exercise discipline, and they try to control it. They try to stop it. And that's what they do. They suppress it. They push it down. And it really is much easier to do that if you know for a fact what's actually going on. So the only solution at that point when it is being reactivated is to have an understanding of what's going on and just to try and control it as much as possible. I said I wasn't going to give you any kind of temporary techniques to handle habits on a day-to-day basis, because honestly, you're much better off just spending the time immediately trying to get to the root and clear up the source of the reactive mind, which is these engrams in the first place, so that they're not getting triggered. That's the ultimate solution. So I don't want to give you a temporary solution. I want to give you the root and then clear up the root so that it's handled for good and you don't have to handle it again. Period. That's the point. I hope that answers the question, Mark. The Body Keeps the Score is a book. The Body Keeps the Score is a book I'm reading at Resident. Okay, very good, Mark. Trina, very good. Are you still there or are you gone? She is gone. Trina's gone. Okay, I've had the audio, very good. Good, Dee. Okay, that's excellent. Good, good. So you're obviously, everybody's kind of on the same page with this. I think, ultimately, you know, if you look at, certainly in Ireland, you know, everybody's got some sort of, well, it appears to be some sort of habit that they're trying to control by being busy on other things, whether that's getting involved in trying to develop yourself or exercising more or getting busy at work or, I don't know, sleeping more or staying awake more or whatever it is. These are all efforts to try and handle it. And they do help. They definitely do help. You need them. But if you're going to actually become able to think and be able to be in control of those thoughts, then you need to clear up the things that actually affect you in a negative way. And that's the whole point of the subject of Dianetics, is to just handle the root. And it's nasty sometimes, you know, when you're going into a session. You might have an incident that you didn't want to face for years and years and years. You don't want to talk about it. You didn't want to talk about it. And you're not going to talk about it until you're ready. And so in a Dianetic session, you're going to be just taken on a gradient, bit by bit, you know. And it gets easier and easier. But it's not always easy. It's not always easy. Some of these incidents can be quite tough. And because they're buried, often you don't even know they're there. But once you start peeling off the layers like an onion, they become very visible. Okie dokie. All right, folks. So, listen, if anybody's any other questions, you can pop them in. I'm going to wrap up the webinar right now. And the link is going to stay there in the chat for anybody who wants to click on the link, and, you know, it'll be open there till 8:45 in the deal. I want to say thank you very much to everybody who's joined us tonight, and for your time and for your patience, especially with the technical issues at the start. and for listening and for giving me all your examples. I am very grateful. So thank you very much, Mark, and for having your camera on as well, Mark. Much appreciated. It's nice to see you. Lorna, Margaret, Ray, Ger, Mambule, hello Mambule, Carol and Dee. Folks, thank you so much for your time. The chat is going to still stay open, but I'll be gone. So have a beautiful evening, and I hope to see you on the course. Okay? Bye.